What is going on, ballers? It's your boy MJ coming at you with another episode of the Fantasy Fumble. I'm here with my co-host Joe the Birdman. Tell him, Joe, how you doing today, brother?
Oh, I'm doing great, Manny. It's gearing up to be an exciting week. It's Thanksgiving week, so I always really look forward to this week of football, man. There's nothing better than just eating all day and watching football.
Oh yeah, we have some plans too. Finally, I got my smoker this year, so this Thanksgiving, instead of doing the usual turkey, we're gonna smoke some beer can chicken, make it good, right? So, but regardless, we have a great show for you guys here. Today, we're gonna talk about our top 15 wide receivers. We're gonna also give you updates on who to start this week, and of course, if your trade deadline's not there yet, we'll also get into that as well. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Hey there, my name is Manny James Gonzalez with PRB, and I'm a real estate agent here in Central Florida. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, military relocation pro, and big supporter of 2A and veterans' rights. My specialty is VA transactions. I'm also experienced in all parts of real estate.
I've been living in Florida for over 20 years, and I can tell you we still believe in freedom down here. One of the greatest job markets, excellent economy, and no state income tax. When it comes to an agent, you want one that's going to be honest, not afraid of a fight, and most importantly, willing to do the things that some agents aren't willing to do.
And what's that, Manny?
Shoot straight, Dan. If you're ever considering buying in Central Florida, you need somebody you can trust, and I got your six. I'm Manny James Gonzalez, buying land for the free and home for the brave.
Welcome back, ballers. Let's get into some news and notes. Now, there's a few notable players that didn't practice, but you got to keep in mind this is a short week, so it could just be a rest day. But George Pickens is dealing with some calf and knee issues. Devonta Smith also dealing with some shoulder and chest issues. Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins will not play in week 13 due to that concussion. I'm sure you guys saw that where he just kind of fell flat on his face. It looked like a hard hit. It looked like it hurt, man. Running back Isaiah Pacheco will play in week 13 against the Dallas Cowboys. Buccaneers quarterback Baker Mayfield, the MRI showed only an AC joint sprain, but his status for week 13 is still uncertain, so keep an eye on him. Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow allegedly will return this time. We thought he might return last week, but they're saying he is going to play in week 13, which is great because Flacco's banged up right now. Vikings quarterback J.J. McCarthy has been placed in the concussion protocol. Manny, who's the quarterback again? Because Carson Wentz is out for the season. We were looking this up before we started recording.
It was Max Brossman.
Max Brossman. Keep an eye on that stats. I don't know. Maybe that's better than J.J. McCarthy, honestly. So we'll find out.
Brosmer. Max Brosmer. I was incorrect.
Brosmer. Whatever.
That's the only quarterback I could find on the depth chart.
Good luck, guys.
All right.
I have Jefferson in a couple leagues, and I have Addison in like 4 leagues. So I'm concerned. Houston Texans quarterback CJ Stroud is still going through the concussion protocol, but is expected to be cleared soon and available for week 13. And Browns quarterback Shedeur Sanders will be the starting quarterback for the Browns, even though Dylan Gabriel has cleared the concussion protocol.
You just suck.
Sorry.
No, it's not that you suck, Dylan Gabriel. I'm saying the organization of the Browns sucks because they can't seem to invest
Hey,
in what
Sanders
they need
looked
to.
all right, though. I mean,
I like Sanders, but they don't want him to succeed.
It was a reserved approach, but he did look pretty good. And he got Sampson on that little shovel pass that ended up being a long score. So that all those stats count for him.
Yeah.
Quarterback Jaden Daniels will participate in practice this week, but of course is unlikely to play. Can you believe that?
That man's a superhuman.
I know, especially after you see that video, you're like, no chance. Now, some notable players that are possibly returning to the field from IR. Keep an eye on all these guys. Jaden Reed, Omarion Hampton, Bucky Irving, Trey Benson, and Darren Waller. Now, obviously, some of these guys are expected to play, like Omarion Hampton, Bucky Irving, Trey Benson. Jaden Reed might be another week, and Darren Waller might be another week or two. So just keep an eye on all those guys. If any of them are on waivers, pick them up and just put them on your bench. See what happens. Darren Waller, I grabbed in a couple leagues because he was dropped. Jaden Reed, I grabbed in a couple leagues. They're guys that people forgot about because they've been out for a few weeks. So there's a chance they're available.
Well, yeah, Jaden Reed's been out for all 11 games this season. I think he played maybe one or something.
I think
like
he played
that.
one. Yeah, maybe two. But yeah, I mean, Omarion Hampton and Bucky Irving, they're obviously rostered. There is a chance Trey Benson's available. So if he's there, grab him.
Or Max Brosmer if you're really desperate.
Yeah, or Max Brosmer. Now let's get into our top 15 wide receivers for the rest of the season.
Welcome back, ballers. So now going into our number one pick, I'm pretty sure it's a consensus across the board. And if you don't believe he's number one, then you're in denial. But Jackson Smith-Njigba, right? That's going to be number one. Right now, he already has 1,300 yards and receiving for the league. There's only one other person over 1,000, and that's someone else we'll talk about it a little bit later. But I mean, he's leading the league right now, 10.7 targets per game. He averages 23.2 fantasy points per game, and he's somebody that's already got 107 targets. And we still got 6 games left for the season, 5 for fantasy weeks. So he's definitely going to be chasing Cooper Kupp's numbers, and if you can make a move for him, it's going to be expensive. But honestly, it's not worth mortgaging out half your team just to pick him up, because that's how much value he does have.
Yeah, you would have to give up a lot to get anyone to trade him at this point. And last week was the best fantasy output for JSN this season. But as you just mentioned, he's been playing at the highest level all season, every single week. He's averaging 123 yards per game, over 23 fantasy points per game, and over 10 targets per game. And the Seattle offense runs through him, obviously. And his upcoming schedule, it really doesn't concern me because nobody's been able to stop him yet, including some of the best pass defenses in the league. Against Jacksonville, JSN had 13 targets, 8 catches for 162 yards, their top 3 pass defense. And he also had a touchdown. And that was over 30 fantasy points. And then against Houston, we all know that Houston is like the tippy top of the defenses right now. And he had 14 targets, 8 catches for 123 yards and another touchdown. So, that was 26 fantasy points. I mean, he's matchup proof. He's got 7 touchdowns on the year. Absolutely number one, no questions asked. Now for number 2, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's been very consistent all season and has the exact same number of pass attempts as JSN so far with 107. He's only had 2 down weeks, but his floor is so high that the matchups don't really matter. And his schedule is appealing for the rest of the season. So, I feel like he's matchup proof. He has a decent schedule. He's averaging 20 fantasy points per game, and he has 9 touchdowns on the year. So while the Detroit offense does like to spread the ball around, he looks to be Goff's favorite red zone target. And I just see him having that consistently high floor where obviously he's a must start every week, and the matchups don't really concern me.
Yeah, so I definitely agree. I have him as my number 2 as well. I mean, at this point, it's pretty obvious, right? With performance, his last game alone, he had 9 receptions for 149 yards. Like the guy was going at, and he was targeted 13 times in that game. So he's averaging 10.7 targets per game as well. The problem is, of course, you're going to, this season he's had 2 single-digit games, right? Games where they don't even get him the ball because they just run the ball so well. And I think that's concerning in a little bit, that I'm not going to feel 100% confident he's going to have, win it all for me. But he's definitely a guy that's going to get me 20 points a game every single time, right? So if you have him on your team, chances are you grab them with your first round pick, because there's no way he slipped to the second round.
Oh yeah.
Now, for my third overall pick, our third overall fantasy wide receiver for the rest of the season, I do have Puka Nacua. So I was looking at the last 5 fantasy games for the season, right? Because we don't care about week 18. That's pretty much when most teams rest their starters. So Puka Nacua, 3 out of those 5 matchups are really easy matchups on paper, and then obviously he's somebody that's going to get the ball a lot. So he gets 9.8 targets per game. So he has 98 targets already for the season, and he has 5 touchdowns. So obviously, we know where those other touchdowns are going, and we'll talk about him later. But as far as like the way the Rams run their offense, like they're always going to scheme him open. They're always going to have a few plays for him, and they're going to give him his look. So he's somebody that, obviously you had to grab in the first or traded for, right? So, or even the second in some cases. But, overall, these top 3 guys, in my opinion, have been the top 3 guys, I'd say, with the exception of Jackson Smith and Jigba, have been some of the top 3 rated guys coming into the season. So they're living up to that pedigree, in my opinion.
Yes, most definitely. I will talk about Puka soon. But for my number 3, I actually have Jamar Chase. Even with a bye and missing last week, he still leads the league in targets with 117. And Burrow should be the starting quarterback this week and continue to pepper Chase with targets. And another thing, I actually, as I talk about a lot, I prefer when there's 2 top wide receivers on the field. I just feel like, if you're going to have a defense that has more than just Jamar Chase to worry about, that's usually helpful. But Higgins is out this week, which means that they're going to really lean into Jamar Chase with the receiving game. So, I mean, obviously the tight ends will be involved too, but I think this is going to be a huge week for Jamar. I mean, he's going to have to step up. It's pretty much, they're pretty much out of playoff contention, but this is really their last ditch effort this week. And he's going to have to come into this game hungry after that week 12 suspension and really prove himself. And he's going to need to have Burrow, basically Burrow wants to prove himself too. Like, hey, I'm back, I'm healthy, I'm ready to go. So I feel like those 2 are coming into the game with something to prove. And Cincinnati has virtually no defense, so they're going to be on offense a lot. And this is going to be for the rest of the season. Their defense has been piss poor all year. It's going to be piss poor for the rest of the year. And as I've said many times before, that leads to plenty of volume for the pass catchers, and the Bengals and the Dallas Cowboys. Those are 2 perfect examples. Chase only has 5 touchdowns on the season, but he's still averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. I feel like he's definitely in the top 5. And for me, I have him as the number 3.
Okay. Yeah, I like Chase. I like Chase a lot. I'm not going to touch up on him, though. But who? Not yet, anyways. Who's your number 4 then?
My number 4 is actually Rashee Rice. He's living up to the expectations we had upon his return. Similar to the other guys you mentioned, like this is what we expected. And it helps that Mahomes has been on fire this year too. He's scored 3 touchdowns. No, I'm sorry. Now I'm talking about Rashee Rice again. He's scored 3 touchdowns over the 5 games he's played. He's averaging 82.5 yards per game and over 10 targets per game. He's a lineup lock every week. And the rest of the Kansas City pass catchers are a distant second behind Rashee Rice. The matchups over the next 5 weeks are opposite ends of the spectrum. So you're going to probably have some games where he's got boom, high ceiling, and then other games where he's got just a high floor. But regardless, you're going to take that high floor every day of the week. So this week he has Dallas, which is great, but then he has Houston and the Chargers, and they are a little tougher against the pass, obviously. So the thing is, though, week 16, he has Tennessee. That's delicious. And then week 17, he has Denver. So a lot of up and downs because Denver, the championship week, that's going to be tough. But again, you're playing him regardless of the matchup. I don't see any reason to hesitate putting him in, even in the championship week against Denver. But I have him at the number 4 spot.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty bold. Big balls call, Joe.
That is
Big balls. I like it. Now, for my number 4, I actually have George Pickens coming in over here. I mean, he's somebody that just really has come on, right? Like everybody thought he'd be good, and then missing time without CD, like he did better than everyone expected. And I'm an Eagles fan, so I hate to say this, but this man has been on an absolute tear. I mean, just his last 2 games alone, he had 20 targets, came up with 18 of those receptions, and then he had over 300 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Like, you're telling me that man ain't on fire? And the rest of his matchups, I mean, I'm looking at the matchups based upon, how many of them are going to be favorable on paper. So right now, 2 out of those 5 matchups are good. The other 3 are going to be tough ones, but obviously, if you have CeeDee Lamb, they're going to be putting a lot of attention to him, which has left George Pickens in one-on-one situations. And he's winning that 50-50 ball, 9 out of 10 times from what I've seen this year. So he's somebody that I love as far as fantasy purposes only, in a non-homosexual way, and 9.2 targets per game. He already has 1,000 receiving yards. He's only the second person in the league right now with over 1,000. First one being number 1, of course. Right. So he's just going to keep going off, man. And Dallas likes to throw the ball. So I only expect fireworks from here on out.
Absolutely agree with that. That's why for my number 5, I have George Pickens. Just to piggyback on a few things you were saying, I mean, he's been a monster, total monster, and he's making highlight reel catches every single game. When he's double covered, he's still making it happen. And like you said, he's the number 2 wide receiver right now with only JSN in front of him. He's averaging 20 fantasy points per game, and he has 8 touchdowns on the year. As you mentioned, he does have some difficult matchups over the next month, but Dak is gonna continue feeding him no matter who they're playing. It's just baked into the cake. And he has the Washington Commanders in week 17 for your championship. So if you can make it there, that's a nice finish for George Pickens. And I have him at number 5 for the rest of the season.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. Pickens, man, he's on the surge. All right, Joe. Now going in my number 5, I actually have Jamar Chase. Obviously, he's somebody that, could potentially even jump up those ranks. I think you had him at number 3, right? But because he has such a favorable schedule, 4 out of 5 of those matchups are very favorable. Joe Burrow coming back is obviously a huge benefit, right? Joe Flacco has been solid, but Joe Burrow is really going to spread that ball. And especially being down at T. Higgins, he's going to get an extra 5 targets because of the absence of T. Higgins, right? And then whoever else gets to step into that second string pass catcher role. But I see him. He's already 861 yards for the season, and he's already at 11.7 targets per game. And that's without Burrow. So I only expect it to get bigger from there. And obviously, he has that pedigree. If you were able to trade for him when he had those down weeks, now you're about to be rewarded for your trouble and the bounty you paid to receive him on your team. But yeah, he's going to be a fun one to watch for the rest of the season.
Most definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned their schedule because I didn't touch on that, and it does look good. Now for number 6, I have a gentleman that you mentioned earlier, and that's Puka Nacua. We kind of flip-flopped. Close. You had Puka at number 3.
Yep.
And over the first 5 weeks of the season, Puka was untouchable. He was the number 1, even with JSN in the mix. Puka was just a monster. And over the last 5 games, he's slowed down just a little bit, but he's still an animal, and he's on one of the best teams in the NFL. Stafford has been amazing this year, and having Devontae Adams and Kyron on the offense prevents double coverage. It keeps the defense busy, keeps them honest. And the schedule for the rest of the season is pretty nice too. Most teams are kind of middle of the pack against the pass. So just based on everything I've seen and what I expect over the remainder of the season, I have Puka at number 6, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him in the top 3.
Yes, sir. Now, for my number 6, I have a gentleman who I talked about, his teammate earlier. And of course, he's somebody that has made a name for himself by himself. Devontae Adams. 3 out of 5 of their matchups coming up are going to be juicy on paper. Obviously, he leads the NFL with touchdown receptions at 12, right? So, and that he'd done that on 94 targets so far. So if you look at it, the breakdown is 9.4 targets per game, and Puka Nacua is getting 9.8 targets a game. So that between the two of them, there's going to be 20 targets. So that's why and despite that touchdown, he's only averaging 16.6 fantasy points per game, which allows him to kind of fly under the radar for a lot of people. So in my opinion, if you're looking at anybody to buy on, and that's somebody that could possibly be available for the right price, but overall, he's someone that's just going to give you a strong finish to the end here.
Oh yeah, and I'll just piggyback again on the things you were saying, because at number 7, I have Devontae Adams. He is just a red zone monster. What he doesn't get in yards, he makes up for in touchdowns. 12 touchdowns on the season, and although he's had a few down games, including recently in week 11 against the Seahawks, he's been pretty consistent all year. And I expect him to be a reliable player all season. I mean, I didn't expect him to do this well. I expected him to be reliable. He is that guy. He's just very, very reliable, huge red zone threat. And I expect that for the rest of the year. A lot of it, as I mentioned with Puka, a lot of it's due to Matthew Stafford and the Rams offense as a whole. But you got to give him props for staying at the top of the food chain this long. He's going to continue getting plenty of looks from Stafford. And as I mentioned, a good amount of those will be in the end zone. So that's why I have him at number 7.
Yeah. And then obviously a lot of these guys are going to be interchangeable, right? So overall, it's not necessarily all about the, position of the order, but the fact that, we believe these certain players are going to be really good, right? So, hopefully if you have the opportunity to trade, like we said, don't mortgage out your team for one player, but if it makes sense and you could make it make sense, then do so. However, going into my number 7 option here, right? So number 7 player overall, I do have Drake London. Man's been on a tear here. So he's gone 60 receptions on 94 targets and 810 yards for the season. So he's pretty solid. Obviously, Michael Penix being down, it's going to hurt his stock, right? Kirk Cousins coming in there. I think they at least have a veteran that can run the offense. And when you have a guy like this, you're going to feed him the ball, right? He's averaging 19 points a game, and that's only at a 9.4 target per game share. So it's not even like a big target share. I'd say he's been in the top, 20 in targets in the league, so he's not getting a lot of looks. So who knows? Maybe it changes with Kirk Cousins, right? And they start passing more. But either way, I'm a big fan of him coming in that top 7 here.
I'm glad you mentioned him. I don't have him in my top 15, and here's why. First of all, I love Drake London. I drafted him in a lot of leagues, but I'm nervous about 2 things. I'm nervous about Kirk Cousins, and I'm still not sure what's going on with his injury. I don't know if he's going to be back this week. I've been looking for updates all day, and I haven't been able to find an update. We're recording on Tuesday, so this is going to be released Wednesday. I just don't have an update yet. So I'm kind of nervous. Like, is he going to play this week, or is he going to be out this week? And then how does Kirk Cousins throw the ball? How does he look as the leading quarterback for that team? I don't know. So I'm glad you brought him up, because, he was hovering in and out of my top 10, and then he was dropping into my towards the 15. And then the more and more I looked at other players, he eventually just worked his way out of my top 15. So
Yeah, but if you look at his last game with Kirk Cousins, he went 7 for 9, 119 yards, 0 touchdowns, right? So modest 18 points. But you can't ignore the fact that the last 3 games, he's gone 22 for 31, so 22 receptions on 31 targets, 341 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So one thing for sure, the offense is going to be feeding him the ball. So obviously, I'm bullish on him. You're not. So at the end of the day, we're not always going to agree on everything.
I'm glad you're bullish on him because I have him in a lot of leagues, and I'm just nervous about that offense and his injury. And I haven't seen an update yet, but I hopefully will have one tomorrow, so I know what to expect this week. Because right now he's on my bench, and I've got Mooney in there, and not confident with that. He did all right last week, but that was because he got bailed out with a touchdown. Now for number 8, I have CD Lamb. It's been kind of an off season for CD, and he's also missed 4 games, but he's still CD Lamb. If you take away the game against the Bears when he got injured in the first quarter, he's averaging 10 targets and 17 fantasy points a game. He's the kind of player that just bounces back. Anytime someone starts doubting him, he's like, did you forget who I was? So I think he's going to bounce back strong as long as Dak plays well. And Dak has been pretty solid this year. So, Pickens, as I mentioned, he's going to take some of those targets away. But the way the Dallas Cowboys operate, they throw the ball so much that they have plenty for CD and Pickens to go around. And the upcoming schedule, as we talked about earlier, does present some challenges. But Dallas has been great on offense all year. So I think they're going to overcome those tough matchups, even though they're going to get scored on a lot. Hey, that's a good recipe for fantasy. We're not worried about that. We want them to get scored on a lot so that CD and Pickens can eat. And I got him at the number 8 spot.
Oh, yeah. Definitely more bullish on him than me. I'll get into him a little bit later. Now for my number 8 spot, I have Rashee Rice. Obviously, you talked about his stats there. 3 out of 5 of those games are nice layup games for him. We all know he's Patrick Mahomes' favorite target. He averages about 9.1 targets per game since he's been back. And, he's already had some blow-up games. I'm sure that's why, obviously, you're very bullish on him. Overall for the season, in just 5 games, he has 34 receptions on 394 yards. So, the guy's really, taken off since he's been back. But definitely someone that, it all depends on if Mahomes shows up. And unfortunately, with that offensive line play, that's the reason why I faded him a little bit more, because I just, that concerns me just a little bit. But if I have him, I'm starting him no matter what, but that's
Most
my
definitely.
concern.
Now, who do you have at number 9?
Number 9. So I actually have a Emeka Egbuka, number 9. He's had a couple off weeks the last couple weeks. And, before that, it's all contingent upon, Baker Mayfield, right? He hasn't been playing his best. And also the rookie had a couple drops, right? So it's on both of them. Offensive line is playing good. They're just unfortunately not connecting. So I expect that to change now with Chris Godwin coming back. Possibly even Mike Evans. Like how do you justify not having all 3 of them on the field at the same time, right? Because those are 3 really talented wide receivers. So I just like his target share, 9.3 targets per game. I think that might take a little bit of a dip, but he already has 750 yards for the season. And, because he only has 6 touchdowns, he's not blowing up the stat line because he's only averaging 14.7 because of those bad games. But, I think they get it together. Baker comes back healthy in a couple weeks, and then, they're just in time for the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, I will talk about him very shortly. But for my number 9, I have Nico Collins. Nico had a rough start. But Houston has been hanging in there with Davis Mills, and Stroud will be back soon. But even with Davis Mills, it hasn't been an issue for Nico. He's gotten double-digit targets in the last 4 out of 5 games, and their schedule's middle of the pack for the rest of the season. They do play the Chargers in Week 17, which is a tough matchup against the pass. But Nico Collins is great. Like I said, he's an elite talent. He's going to get peppered with targets no matter who's throwing the ball. And that's why I have him inside my top 10. He did have a rough start to the season, but I feel like he's proven himself over the last month. And I think he's going to solidify himself as a top 10 wide receiver over the next 5 weeks. And I've got him at number 9.
I'm crossing my fingers. I have a few shares of him, and one in each of my leagues. However, I won't talk too much about him just now, because for my number 10, I actually have someone that, I may be more bullish on than some. But Chris Olave, man, he has been the biggest surprise of the fantasy season this year. Let me tell you, like, the guy already has 108 targets right now for the league, which is top 3 in target share. I mean, 734 yards, and he averages 10.8 targets per game. And he's had at least 3 or 4 double-digit target games, right? And the guy, because he has 4 touchdowns, he's only averaging 14.9 fantasy points. But the Saints' last 5 games, this is weeks 4, from now on, week 12 to 17. The last 5 games are really terrible defenses, bottom under 500 teams. So you can expect some teams to tank. But I think because New Orleans is trying to develop that identity, Kellen Moore is the first-year head coach. He needs to make sure to get his team gelling. And, you're going to see them feed him the ball and figure out ways to get him the ball. So that's why he broke my top 10 this week, or for the rest of the fantasy season. Excuse me.
Yes. I'll talk about him soon as well. But for my number 10, I have Emeka Egbuka. He came out swinging this year, as you just mentioned, with double-digit fantasy points in every game over the first 5 weeks. He had a handful of down games in recent weeks, but some of those were tough matchups. And as you just mentioned, the Tampa Bay schedule for the rest of the season is pretty nice. So Baker, he's a quarterback that loves to throw the ball, and Egbuka is his number 1 wide receiver. Even when Godwin comes back, Egbuka's the number 1. And if you make it to the finals, he gets Miami in week 17. So that should be a nice matchup for him too. I feel like despite these down weeks that we've seen recently, he has proven himself as a top 10 receiver, and I have him rounding out right at the 10 spot.
All right. Only one off. Not bad. What about your number 11?
Well, we're just one off for this too. I have Chris Olave. Just to echo what you just said, man, he's another one I doubted coming into the season, but he has been great. And I'm like an Olave hater. I don't know why I doubt him, but I do. And it's similar to like other players in the past where I doubt them until they, continue just kicking ass and proving themselves. And I'm fine to be proven wrong, but I did not expect anything like this. Averaging 15 points a game, looking like a total stud, no matter who's throwing him the ball. I mean, he's on New Orleans. We got to remember this. And as you mentioned, the schedule for the rest of the season is delicious. He's got Miami, Tampa, Carolina, New York Jets, and Tennessee. So,
Hold on. What the hell is this delicious thing you've been trying to bring by?
Well, I don't think I've said it too many times, but it is delicious.
You've used delicious at least twice so far this episode. Guys, correct me if I'm wrong. Fact checkers, get on there.
I might have said it for our running back top 15. I don't think I said it this time. I don't even have it written down. I don't know why I use that word. It's tasty. Maybe I should say tasty. Does that sound any better? No. But anyway, Miami, Tampa, Carolina, New York Jets, and Tennessee. Carolina's decent against the pass, and Miami's been stepping up in recent weeks. But overall, that's a great schedule. And to get Tennessee in week 17, that's awesome. The recipe for success is definitely there from a fantasy perspective. And it's just a shame he's on the Saints because he could be one of the best in the NFL.
He's on the Aints, bro, because they ain't good.
I mean, it really does suck. 'Cause, like, when you see what he's doing on that team, you're like, damn, man, he is a stud. But
All right, well, I'm going to get into my number 11 then. That's going to be Mr. JJ the Jet Plane, Justin Jefferson, Minnesota Vikings. 3 out of his last 5 games are nice, juicy matchups on paper. Obviously, we have Max Brosner throwing him the ball, so we don't know how good that's going to be. But maybe he has a good deep ball, right? He's in the NFL. He's got to be there for a reason. So we're going to get to see that here with JJ McCarthy most likely missing the start. But I still think with Justin Jefferson, has gotten 99 targets already for the season. He's already at 795 yards, and his target share is 9.9. So you might as well round it up to 10 with a couple of double-digit games in there packed in. And because he only has 2 touchdowns and because they're not getting him the ball, he's only averaging 13.8 fantasy points per game, which is terrible considering his pedigree. The coach for Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell, has to get him the ball, right? Like I even, in between the breaks, I looked up a report one day ago that actually said Max Brosner is the dude. So that was actually pretty good picking out of the fantasy quarterbacks. But regardless, if someone's selling on him, you could buy him cheap. And once he gets a couple games and he shows you he's still Justin Jefferson, then unfortunately the window has closed for your opportunity to get him at that price.
Yeah, you're running out of time with the trade deadline anyway. But I totally agree that's probably this is probably the time to bite and try to make a move for him. But again, I don't have him inside my top 15, and I have him in 2 leagues. I am, highly invested in his success, but the quarterback situation has tainted my mind, and I cannot, we thought he was quarterback proof, but he was so much better with Carson Wentz than with JJ McCarthy. And coming into the season, I was pretty high on JJ McCarthy. I thought he'd be a respectable quarterback just because he's got all these weapons on the offense, and he has been really bad. So maybe this new quarterback that I keep forgetting his name, maybe he actually will be beneficial to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and the whole offense, because under JJ McCarthy, they have been struggling, and you can see the frustration on the field. I mean, it's tough when you start Addison and Jefferson in multiple leagues and you see this day in, day out. So I'm glad that you are confident in the rest of the season for Justin Jefferson. I am not, and I would love to be wrong.
And I bet you Minnesota is really feeling the decision of letting Sam Darnold walk, because although he had that 4 interception game 2 weeks ago, he came back and threw for 3 this past game. So, and it's looking like every bit of he was really good at running that offense, and not everybody can run it. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
Darnold, regardless.
Yeah, Darnold's been awesome. And how many picks has McCarthy had, in the last 3 weeks? A lot
more than not a lot more, because Darnold had 4 at least. But I don't know the exact numbers. But regardless, why don't you lead us off over here with your number 12?
My number 12 is actually Devontae Smith.
Okay.
I did not expect him when I was putting this list together. I did not expect to have him in my top 15. He's been up and down this year, but his schedule looks great for the rest of the season, aside from the Chargers in week 14. So pushing that aside, the schedule is really nice. It almost seems like, and this is every year, it's not just this year. It seems like he and AJ will trade off each week as far as who's going to show up. But Devontae's been the more consistent one this year. So he's only averaging 13.5 fantasy points per game, but he's looked much better in recent weeks compared to the first half of the season. So I expect him to kind of continue. He did have a down week last week, but I expect him overall to be a force to be reckoned with and finish strong. Again, I like the schedule. I like the team as a whole. And I'm pretty high on AJ too, but I have Devontae Smith at the number 12 spot.
Very nice. Okay. I'll talk about him a little bit later. Right now, for my number 12, I actually have a rookie here, right? And he's someone I was bullish on going into the season, and he's pretty much like valued very similar in overall now. But that's Tetairoa McMillan. Obviously, the guys, had a slow start to the season. He had a couple big games, right? Right now he has 99 receptions and 795 yards, right? And only 2 touchdowns. So he's only getting 13.8 points per game. The reason why, he's going to step up is because they're going to keep getting him the ball. And obviously now, the starting quarterback is, Bryce Young is getting it together. So I think with that being said, obviously we got to see his coming to the NFL game, 2 weeks ago when he had 8 receptions for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that was his breakout game. But ever since then, you guys see that consistency. So I think if we can get that consistency from I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that word, from Bryce Young, he could definitely be a solid player for you here on out, and definitely like your wide receiver 2/3.
Yeah, man, Bryce has been much better, and I'll talk about T-Mac in a minute. But who do you have at number 13?
Number 13, I had Michael Pittman Jr. Somebody that I was high on when he first came into the league. He just never had the quarterback support. I think with Indiana Jones, he finally got that quarterback support. It kind of tells you the problem was not the quarterback, it was the Giants organization itself. Right? They claimed another coach. Brian Abel got fired. But however, I do think Indianapolis has a really tough schedule to finish out. Only one good matchup on paper. However, he's their number one option over there. Like the number 2 could be like one of the other 2 or 3 guys, but he's going to get fed. He already has 7 touchdowns for the year. He's averaging 7.8 targets per game, so that's about 8 a game. So he's not going to be a big yardage guy, but he's going to be a big touchdown, giver to you, right? Similar to Devontae Adams, obviously not to that level, but someone that's going to, give you that nice floor, high ceiling,
Yeah, I think he's still inside the top 10 statistically for wide receivers. Missing, having a couple down weeks, it could have pushed him out, but and the bye week, I don't know. I know for like the first half of the season though, he was hovering around like the number 6 wide receiver in the league, and he has been great, but just because he's kind of been absent in recent weeks, I don't have him in my top 15. But he did start off really strong and could easily bounce back. I don't have any worries about him, and he's the number 1 on a really good offense. I was high on Jonathan Taylor despite the matchups, and I like seeing that you're high on Pittman despite the matchups because, these guys that are high-level players, they're matchup proof and they're lineup blocks. So I'm glad you're high on him. Now for my 13, I have A.J. Brown, just right behind Devontae Smith. And for the same reasons I like Devontae, I like A.J. He had a slow start to the season, but put up good numbers in 4 of his last 5 games. And, kind of similar to we see these guys when they have down weeks. They just remind everyone why they're one of the top receivers in the NFL. And again, I like the schedule. And if AJ can replicate what he did last week in any way and stay consistent, he could easily slide into the top 10. But for now, I have him at the number 13 spot for the rest of the season. Now for my 14, I have a gentleman that you just spoke about, Tetairoa McMillan. He still has his bye week coming up, or I probably would have put him inside my top 10. Mm-hmm. He's averaging almost 14 fantasy points per game and has been performing at a steady pace all season. But he has been better over the second half of the season. He has a tough matchup this week against the Rams. And then, as I mentioned, a bye week in week 14. But I still like him as a top 15 wide receiver for the rest of the season. I'm just confident in his ability. I like the quarterback play, and I think that he has proven himself as one of the best wide receivers in the league. Even though it was a little bit of a slow start, he was heavily involved in the offense, and he's clearly more involved now. So I like him over the next 5 weeks.
And one thing I do want to add is obviously Bryce Young. It looked like he had a horrible game with he had 2 picks last game or something like that. But there was a couple plays where he was going to McMillan to either convert a third down or something like that, and he actually had a couple drops. So I ended up seeing that they gave the rookie some gloves to wear because he wasn't wearing gloves before. I guess the conditions were a little bit wet. But I think
No way. I didn't notice that.
yeah, that's something I looked into. And then also with the bye week, that's something that sucks, having a bye week this late. The good news is if you can get them and you already have a high seed, playoffs don't start to week 15 anyways, 15, 16, 17. So if you're missing them week 14, but you're going to be a playoff spot, you could, instead of jockeying for position, you could be like, hey, I don't mind being 4th or 5th. Not much of a trade-off, right? Especially if your team's starting to come back.
Great call. You take advantage of someone that needs a win to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who do you have at 14?
14, you talked about him a little bit earlier, but I'm going to talk about him now. Nico Collins. 3 out of his 5 matchups coming up are great on paper. I mean, the guy's been averaging 9.4 targets per game, so he's been really solid. Obviously, Davis Mills is a downgrade from C.J. Stroud. Hopefully, we get him back because I am heavily invested in Nico Collins this part of the season. Also, I have a share of Jaden Higgins. He's somebody that was solid. But overall, I like where he's heading. He's only at 14.7 fantasy points per game, so I think it's only going to get better from here when his starting quarterback comes back.
Totally agree. And I agree about Jaden Higgins too. I know we were both high on him going into the season. It took him a little while, but he's looking good too.
Sure.
Now at 15, to round out my top 15 for the rest of the season, I have Jalen Waddle. He's another up and down player. He always has been, but he's the top dog in Miami, and he's averaging almost 14 points per game, 14 fantasy points per game, and he has a great schedule for the rest of the season. He's got the Saints, the Jets, Pittsburgh, Cincy, and Tampa Bay. If Tua plays well, Waddle will put up numbers. So that's all it really comes down to. The offense moves through HN, but Waddle is heavily invested, and that guy is the number one. Tua, of course, he's going to be hot and cold, but with that kind of a schedule and Waddle as your top pass catcher, I feel like he's going to finish a lot better than he started. And, he's been good all season. He's just up and down, just similar to Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. He's one of those guys that is going to have some bust weeks, but his floor has been a little higher than normal this year, and I do like him inside top 15 the rest of the season.
Oh yeah, I like that. He didn't make my top 15, but he's somebody that I was looking at because he's been on fire lately, right? No Tyreek Hill, he's the number one, and they're getting him the ball. But obviously, I'll get into a little bit more about that. Now, for my number 15, I actually have Wan'Dale Robinson, New York Giants. Never thought I'd say that. But he's only one of only 5 players so far, wide receivers with over 100 targets for the season. So he's doing great. He's at 102. He has 66 receptions. He actually averages 10.2 targets per game, and that's only going to go up once Jackson Dart comes back or Jameis Winston stays at the helm. It doesn't matter because they're all going to feed him the ball. Like his workload's so big, and the fact that they got 3 out of 5 really good matchups on paper, it's only going to be better for him because he's going to keep getting peppered with targets, double-digit targets per game, and that's just going to translate to a nice sneaky flex / wide receiver 3 for you for the rest of the season.
Man, I'm so glad you brought him up because I have Wan'Dale in a lot of leagues, and he was a target monster last year too. He was at the tip top of the league for targets, and he was just that slot receiver last year that they'd give real short passes to. He'd get you like 3 to 5 yards. But now he's a deep threat too. it's so cool to see him evolve and expand his role in that offense. And they are going to have to lean on the receivers just a little bit because their run game has been suspect. I mean, it's enough to get by, but I think when Dart comes back, it's only going to get better. And Wandale has been great all year. So I'm glad you're high on him enough to have him inside the 15.
You know, and there's some honorable mentions, right? Like I didn't, you know, some guys that didn't make my list, but we're teetering on the edge. You know, CeeDee Lamb was one of them. AJ Brown, I didn't mention him in my list. Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, those are, perennial top 20 guys, right? Sometimes top 15. But unfortunately, due to whatever circumstances or, obviously whatever variables we looked at, we feel this way about them. I'd say half of them were like pretty in line or like within a pick of each other, but the other half, obviously, it was nice to throw in a couple curveballs in there to get people thinking.
And it's interesting that, you didn't have CeeDee Lamb in your top 15, and I didn't have Justin Jefferson in my top 15. And I'm sure you're concerned about the drops with CeeDee. He's been having a lot of drops, and that is tough to explain, but I'm hoping he comes back pissed off and really starts to play. But I feel like CD can fix the problem because it's on him, whereas Justin Jefferson, he might have a harder time fixing that problem.
No, he could throw himself the ball. He hikes it, throws it up, runs.
He probably should. They should just get somebody else in there.
Oh, shit. Well, ballers, it's that time we hate. It's the end of the show. We appreciate you guys supporting us week after week. We're winding down this fantasy season here. Mostly now it's just about rankings or like players that you believe in. But best of luck to all of you on your fantasy seasons. I will hope we led you down the right direction. Joe, did you have anything for these guys?
Yeah, if you guys have been tuning in, we have been leading you down the right direction. So, the path we're on, it's solid for fantasy output. Manny and I are at the top of both of his leagues for a reason. So we appreciate all the support. And I'm not sure what the episodes are going to look like for the rest of the season. We'll figure that out. We might just get back to the normal structure for the next month, but we'll see. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. God bless you all. Appreciate the support.
Yeah, be safe, guys. Take care. We'll see you here next week at the same time, same place. Tell your mother, tell your grandmother. We love you guys. And again, a happy Thanksgiving to all. Bye-bye.